If you are not a Zenin, you are not worthy as a Jujutsu sorcerer. If you are not a Jujutsu sorcerer, you are not worthy as a human being. This is the creed of the Zenin, the most based and shamanistic clan in all of Jujutsu Kaisen. In their arrogance, standing at the precipice of power in the Jujutsu world, they were all taken out and destroyed by a monster of their own making. Today, brothers, let's actually take a step back and dwell on the point of Maki and the Zenin clan, what the Zenin meant to Maki, and why they ended in such a disgraceful way. And this is a topic of utmost importance. The destruction of the Zenin is a part of Maki's very validity in her character. It is like her curse that she carried out in every way to destroy everything. And many readers want to downplay the exact weight of Maki's character and the wasted potential of Naoya and the Zenin clan, when in truth, this is how it has to be. Gege has set up Maki in a way where she is breaking away from the standards set by her family, her peers, herself, to truly become free and make her own path. Not some Toji knockoff, not some ass-pull development, no. Gege has set up true characterization with Maki, and the Zenin itself have themes that can go completely over your head if you allow it. Maki has one of the best stories told in JJK, and that makes Maki so iconic and such a fun and beautiful character. So let's really look at the character Maki has come into and the criticism that comes with Maki's growth, because it's amazing how Gege expresses Maki's character, and I personally have never really seen anything like it. And it's become very unwarranted how certain people see Maki, because to be honest, it's not like she's perfect, but she sure as hell is one of the best written characters in all of Jujutsu Kaisen. And today we will be looking at why Maki is so great and the purpose of the Zenin household. Now, before taking a deep dive into Maki's character, let's consider the Zenin environment. The Zenin family are the most bigot, dark, and conceited clan in all of Jujutsu. Their clan is based on a principle not of love, not on honor, not even on family, but they operate on strength within the household. There is really no visible love in that house. Women are treated as objects, as pretty oriental figures that are used to procreate and succeed the family. Women are house servants and do chores and duties under the men, and if somehow, some way women were in a position to become sorcerers, they are demanded of perfection. Zenin women have an impossible hill to climb, so many of them just stay at the bottom. And this is a huge reason why Maki and Mai had their differences. They had their internal struggles in that household because their self-worth was spat upon their whole lives by their own family. Their own parents had almost no love for them, and they grew more and more distant as they grew older. Maki is the headstrong underdog, and Mai just wants normalcy, always following behind her sister, just doing enough barely to get by. The reason the clan is so shitty is because the men of the house are arrogant, pompous pricks who embody the Zenin creed. Some of the strongest sorcerers in the Foundation, not inherently malicious or murderous as they are proper shamans for the right price, but they have become cocky, arrogant, drunk on their own power, raising generations like Naoya to weed out the weak, even among their own family, to only nurture the strong. The Hiei, the Akashi, the Kukuru, all units that serve the clan's hierarchy in a male-dominated social structure. And this gave birth to harassment and resentment inside the clan. Family is bullied, like Toji getting thrown into a pit of curses and Maki getting beat up by Naoya. The culmination of years of mistreatment gave way to the Zenin purge as Maki destroyed everything. We need to understand the fury of not just Maki in particular, but the will she carries in her soul. Her sister's wish to eradicate the Zenin and the hate and confusion that goes along with that, and her feelings. Maki is not really a perfect being. She has weaknesses and setbacks that make her human and limit her potential. But from Mai's sacrifice on, Maki has started her learning process she has started her journey to this epiphany. It actually is like a clear parallel to themes from something like Zen Buddhism and how she grew and the differences in Maki's mindset. And I think a lot of fans fail to see just how impactful Maki's growth is in this short amount of time, because it is very strange. And this was like a bloody, messy, and controversial path Maki went down, but I feel that this makes her amazing as a character. Obviously, after Mai's death, Maki was broken. It was like she lost a part of her soul that would never come back. Her heart was taken. And initially, Maki is incredibly strong and brash, free from the chains of cursed energy and unleashing her gift by purging everyone of the Zenin. This was a very bitter Maki who hadn't a shred of feeling for her clan and wanted to see her sister's will through. And this was a start. Maki had this new will and power, but she was missing something she couldn't quite grasp. And on top of that, Maki had a bit of an unwavering soul because she was holding herself back subconsciously by comparing herself to others and growing content with what she can do. I say her journey is like Zen Buddhism because she was actually on her path of enlightenment to become free, and she needed to figure out and find out what to cast aside to become stronger. Maki forged her own path, but ironically, she was still trapped in some sort of cycle of karma. Maki had unfinished business with an eternal enemy known as Naoya, and karma is the enemy of enlightenment and truth in Buddhism. Naoya was the karma, and he came back as a stronger spirit and made Maki doubt herself and get unusually emotional about certain things like her mother and her sister. But I actually want to explain Naoya a decent bit because he is one of the most important aspects of Maki's growth in a very symbolic way. Naoya Zenin is a bit of a convoluted character, but he represents the truest form of the Zenin's creed. He is the direct spawn of the Zenin incarnate. Even before being a curse, Naoya was a hot-headed, egotistical, misogynistic shithead of a human. Naoya is literally confirmed by Gege to be poop scum, the lowest of low. He is an incredibly strong character. In fact, he is among the strongest in the clan in a top tier grade 1, but is scum as a person. Naoya is blatantly sexist, he talks shit all the time, he runs his mouth and bullies the weak. But there is still a certain charm with Naoya because he is very young and sharp and has a very competitive aura about him that puffs up his ego. And Naoya has some serious beef and rivalry with Maki because he has this fixation in his own headcanon about Toji and Gojo's power and strength, and he himself wants that type of power to stand with them. He is that very feeling of, only I understand, only I get them. It's a very childish mindset, and because Maki is the one who is just like Toji, Naoya needs to solidify his relevance because Naoya thinks he was born to be that. He was born to be special. He was actually raised that way. So Maki, a woman, gaining this power and humiliating him was devastating. Then after his defeat, he was stabbed in the back by his aunt, Maki's mother, killing him in this pathetic last moment. He actually ate his own words about being stabbed in the back. It's so poetic. Naoya cursed that. He seethed his situation so much that he cursed his very death in resentment and came back as a vengeful spirit who actually grew from his hatred. His ego fueled his cursed body stronger than ever. And to anyone who thinks Naoya should have had more potential or had more substance, really overestimate his character. Because as soon as Naoya came back, he most surely was written to die again. Just look at how much Naoya has given himself to his negative desire. This is absolutely irredeemable for a sorcerer to steep this low, and it's actually sad how Naoya went to reflect his ego in spirit form. He's really just gone. He gave up his humanity, and it's all for something so incredibly petty, just to prove Maki wrong and Naoya grew so powerful from it, literally existing to be the curse to Maki's will. Naoya is the karma Maki is entangled with, and the last remnant of the Zenin to overcome on her path to enlightenment, to truly be free. This brings us to Sakurajima, and this colony was set up to be Maki's stage, Zenin versus Zenin. And the key points I got from this fight was how Maki was trying to find a way to grow and use her gift against her final symbolic curse. If Maki could not overcome Naoya, she would never find peace, because it is her entrusted will to destroy everything, destroy the Zenin, and Maki has serious setbacks. Her power and strength are there. She actually technically is already stronger than Naoya, but her mind stumbles her. Maki cannot find her Zen, and she is not really using her body like she should be. It's like she's trapped by the limitation of what she thinks she should be like. If it was that man, he would have reached that height. That person would have thrown a katana without hesitation. That person would have handled everything at that speed. Maki has a bar set to herself with Toji. Gege knows it, I know it, you know it, Maki knows it. Toji is the obvious example of what Maki could be or will be. It's the only logical comparison. But it's not that Maki is a shadow of Toji. Gege is writing it in a way where she is choosing to see what he sees and realize there are things only she can see, things only he can see. Maki was so stuck on trying to figure out what her differences were and dealing with her own mental anguish that she was like a prisoner, limiting her potential. But what brought her out of this mental rut was a random occurrence. Two random players stumbled into Maki's fight and helped Maki achieve enlightenment. And this is symbolic because often in Buddhism, there really does not have to be any grand pinnacle or spectacle of an event to gain nirvana. When a student is ready, it just happens. And this is very important because for the first time, Maki had to humble herself and let others teach her. She had to rely on others' deeper understanding of what she could not see. If you think about Maki, you likely know that Maki is a hard ass. She is one of the most stubborn women in JJK and has this very uncompromising attitude and never really considered anyone enough to teach her or understand her. Maki closes herself off to help and comfort. She's just built different. She gives the cold shoulder. She grew up that way, to use her own power and understanding to change things herself. But now there are people who can show her the way, and Maki has to accept their help. Sumo and Katana show things to Maki that are unseen to her to reach that new level, and a mindset that casts aside doubt and reason to just use her gifted body the way she wants to use it. Maki has an epiphany. The reason this sort of writing is allowed for Maki, this Deus Ex Machina, is because this is not just a power thing. It's not some ass-pull event, because Maki already had this power, but needed the right way to apply it, and she emerged clearly different. She overcame Naoya with extreme ease and obliterated him without a trace. Maki achieved her Zen, confronted her karma, and gained enlightenment. Naoya's very pissed off and jealous nature makes it very clear just how much they contrast each other. A haughty, egotistical brat who cannot let things be versus a free-spirited, strong young woman who achieved nirvana. Naoya's entire character is that negativity, the karma, the samsara, stuck in a cycle of hate, death, and rebirth, versus the enlightened nirvana, the free. And poetically, Naoya, the haughty one, thought himself unbeatable until the sudden realization that totally eradicated him without a trace. It had to be Maki, and she has to be stronger, smarter, and better as a person to break free from that cycle of karma. Now, this type of message can go over a lot of fans' head, and even the example I used with Zen Buddhism doesn't necessarily even have to apply when you already see the message and relationship in Maki and Naoya's conflict. Zen just makes it culturally more appropriate and fits Maki's epiphany so well. I do think that's what Gege was going for. Now, something I would have liked to see to make Sakurajima hit harder is just one more conclusion chapter to nail the point home and even give callbacks to Naoya's childhood or Maki's upbringing. I think that type of send-off is more emotional, but in context with Gege's story, I honestly never really cared enough about Naoya to see his end through, and poetically he was eradicated and casted aside, as Maki is the victorious winner who accomplished her sister's will, as it should be. I understand some pacing issues because this fight kind of dragged out, then wrapped up quickly, but I really do not understand or get how people had real expectations for Naoya because he was clearly set up to die, literally like a stepping stool and a growing device for Maki. Finally though, I really need to drive the point on how incredibly Maki is written. She is a woman who has the power of Toji, but is like the actual embodiment of defying expectation. A Zenin girl raised in the crappiest family and held back by conditions she could not control. Yet she is so damn strong. But at the same time, Maki is imperfect. She's only human. Things do get to her. Words hurt. Bullying hurts. Being treated different hurts. Maki is not invincible. She may be this stubborn badass, but there's really a wounded 16-year-old girl under there. She wants to make connections. She wants to be loved and wants to love others. But because of how she was brought up, her heart was hardened. And this is why Maki is so strong. She's cold-hearted. No one can teach her nothing she doesn't already know. She doesn't need help. She gives the cold shoulder and does her own thing. Of course, it's relative because she actually did make friends and she cares deeply for her sister Mai, but she fails to reach out and understand others as she grew older. And she actually had a bit of a fallout with Mai as they have contrasting beliefs to live normally or climb to the top. Maki just can't live that way. It goes against her ideals, but she still wanted to make a place where Mai felt she belonged and welcomed. However, now Mai has been killed by her own father, and Maki only grew strong enough to change things when her sister passed away and left her behind, making Maki stronger. And that's just unfair. There's a heavy amount of resentment and confusion in Maki's character that keep reminding us that she is hurting. Ironically, we only really see Maki's definitive love when Mai has already passed on, because that is her treasure, her heart. Mai is Maki's heart, and it has been taken from her. So Maki had to deal with Mai's will in a fit of rage, confusion, sadness, and emptiness. I think it's pretty overlooked how Gege portrays Maki's happiness and then how swiftly it was taken away from her in this cursed world. It's extremely sad, and still Maki's actions make her look back on how she killed her family. Maki is actually confused on why her mother of all people harbored such resentment for her daughters to even regret giving birth to her. Maki cannot be a proper woman. She cannot support the family. She cannot submit to the family, and her and Mai were unfit sorcerers. Her mother resented Maki in particular, and I actually think that's the biggest hole in Maki's heart other than Mai's loss, because there was really no one in her corner. Yet now there's always going to be some mixed feelings, because in the end, her mother actually still loved her and killed Naoya. It was like a lie. In fact, she loved her children and was happy for them, but Maki still took her life, not really knowing the whole truth, not at least letting more time to pass to talk to her because things were left unsaid, yet Maki still slit her throat. And I really think this adds another layer to Maki because she is starting to realize from her mistakes and trying her best to grow from her suffering. When I say Maki is enlightened or free, I don't just mean in a physical sense, not just because she's immune to domains or has a soul-cutting sword or eyes that see the unseen. Not just that. Maki is becoming someone who is not so bitterly entangled with the Zenin. She is opening herself up to others to help her on her path. She is no longer worried about what others think of her, and it's like a weight has been lifted off of her. She actually has people, strong people that will support her. Even at Maki's strongest, at her peak, there are still ones there for her. Do you see that the scourge of the Zenin family failure, the Zenin Revenger, is becoming something more than that and breaking past her own shell? It's honestly amazing how well Maki is written and the story she tells in the series. I actually wish we had more time to focus on her in the manga, because Gege created one of the best characters and definitely a shonen female who has broken barriers. I'm really not seeing anyone do it like her, and the level of imperfection, the realism, the resolve, the strength, the story Maki tells is so impactful, and it's still being written. Even with me, enemy stand user, explaining this to you guys as a content creator, I can praise Maki all I want, but I can only encourage you amazing brothers to interpret and comprehend Maki's character on your own and how it makes you feel personally, because it is inspiring, and I really do hope many of you see that. I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Maki is beyond amazing as a character and has a lot to draw from her story. Please check out the description links for the credit for Maki's Zen Buddhism inspiration, and remember to like and sub for more content like this. You guys are amazing, and I hope you enjoyed this analysis on Maki Zenin. This has been Enemy Stand User, and I'll see you guys in the next one.